Right, this is a outside lesson for the third time on September 18th, 2025 through the Spirit Progression Mercy of Yahweh Yahushua. And with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Akakadash, and the Heavenly Father's true name is Yahweh, and His Son begot Son Bahashem, and the name of Mashiach Kabashai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the last Wakadash of the tongue. And I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles, wa Akim, wa Akwaf, and I say Shalom. And this is a outside lesson that I wanted to bring out of Isaiah 17 verse 1. That's going to be the title of the outside lesson. Hopefully this be edifying through the Spirit Progression verse of Yahweh Yahushua. And this is the prophet Isaiah chapter 17 verse 1. It says, the burden of Damascus, behold, Damascus taken away from being a city, and that shall be Israel heat. Right, because you're seeing a lot of tensions are heating up over there throughout the years and generations and recently over there in Damascus. It's a war zone, it's like a war zone torn area in that region. That's only going to continue to intensify because you got the proxy groups over there. They was going against Russia, I'm saying from 2015 all the way to now, because you had Russia and Syria, they are allies. They're going against the proxy wars. Now they started to settle their differences. So you're going to have the dragons of Arabia, the Ishmaelites. You're going to have the Russian armies, the Syrian armies, the pro-Iranian groups, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps going against the Israel Defense Force and their allies. So this is going to be a future prophecy that we're seeing in the making, that Damascus and Syria should be taken away from being a city, that should be in world heat. And that's what we're seeing, especially throughout southwest of Syria, southeast of Syria, the southern part of Syria, the deeper, it's like the, especially like the deeper southern part of Syria. You have those proxy groups been clashing against one another, you know, for a very long time, all into now. So you got the Turkish armies, you know, because you got military bases over there in Turkey. I mean, you got military bases down there in Syria from Turkey. They've been going against those proxy groups. So the Kurdistan armies and the Turkish armies, so they settled their differences. I believe like a couple of months ago, they had a ceasefire agreement. So I believe most likely they're going to drop their weaponry, disarm their weaponry, and then they're going to coincide with the Turkish armies and the Kurdistan armies. But you still got proxy groups, because you still got a lot of pro-Kurdistan armies down there going against the pro-Turkish armies in that region as well too. That's why you still got military operations from Turkey down there in the Turkey army and military bases. They still doing operations over there in Iraq and Syria throughout that whole region. So they're going to settle their differences. They're going to team up together. They're going to team up with Russian armies. They're going to team up with the Syrian armies, the pro-Iranian groups, the Dragons of Arabia. They all going to team up together, and they're going to set their side against the Israel Defense Force. So we seeing the tensions are definitely heating up, especially over there in Syria, near Damascus, over there in Damascus. Because I believe like a couple of days ago, you had the Israel Defense Force use another heavy airstrike in that region, targeting those proxy groups, targeting the Syrian armies, targeting pro-Iranian groups. They're going to settle their differences. They all going to team up together going against the Israel Defense Force. So this is a future prophecy that we're seeing in the making. That's why we're seeing what's that, Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, that we're seeing Russia is going to be a god to these nations, Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, and Turkey. That's what we're seeing. So that's why you've been having the president of Turkey been calling out the Israel Defense Force because that Israeli aggression with those unrighteously created airstrikes. And then you had a deal between those nations, between the Israel Defense Force and those proxy groups that they had ever since 1976. And ever since then, they've been violating that agreement between the border dispute, because you've been having military deployment over there from the Israel Defense Force in that region. That's why you've been having cross-border conflicts over there in Syria, Lebanon, over there in Israel, because the borders of Israel, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, throughout that whole region. So that's why you've been having all the nations been calling out the Israel Defense Force, even though you had the Arabian nations over there in Qatar. They got hit with the airstrike because they believe Hamas was having headquarters over there in the area. And then you've been having recent meetings for the past couple of days with those Arab nations over there in, over there in Qatar, because the Israel Defense Force, they use airstrikes over there in that area as well too, just like they did over there in Lebanon. So we definitely seeing multi-wars are heating up over there in that region. So definitely Isaiah 17 verse 1, this is a future prophecy that we're seeing in the making. Because Damascus of Syria, as we know it, is going to be taken away from being a city, and that shall be Israel heat. So it doesn't matter, they're trying to rebuild back over there. They got a new president over there, because the past president over there in Syria, you know, he had escaped from that scene, because you had the rebel groups, they was in an uproar trying to overthrow the president over there in Syria, you know, the former president, but he was able to manage to escape to Russia. That's why you've been having the alliance between Russia and Syria. but they're going to settle their differences because their main target is going to be the Israel Defense Force. Because, you know, Israel, it makes perfect sense because you got Israel Defense Force, they basically striping everybody. They don't care if the proxy wars going against one another over there in Iraq, Syria, throughout that whole region. Hey, these proxy groups and these all these other nations, they're gonna settle their differences. They're gonna be teaming up with the Russian armies, Syrian armies. That's why it makes perfect sense. Like I said, Ezekiel 38 chapter, that's a future prophecy as well too. Ezekiel the 38 chapter verse 39, because you're gonna have Russia, it's gonna be a guard to these nations. Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, and Turkey. They're gonna be going against the Israel Defense Force. All of them going to team up together. They're going to settle their differences. They're going to be teaming up against the Israel. They're going to be teaming up against the Israel Defense Force. And this is a future prophecy that we see in the making, as I mentioned once before, of Isaiah 17 verse 1. So with that, hopefully this lesson was edifying of Isaiah 17 verse 1. That was the title of the outside lesson. Hopefully that was edifying through the spirit, power, grace, and mercy of Yahweh Yahushua. And so with that, I would like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bakarkadash. And the Heavenly Father, the true name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Bahashem, and the name of Mashiach Kabashai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, the Lashwan Kadash tongue. Now say Barak Thumb, and to the elders and apostles, Ba'akim Ba'akwaf. Until next time, I would say Kwame Asherallah, in the Bar of the Ball. Shalom.